back to Real Cast Fishing. Your host, Glenn, with the Cedar Valley Fishing Field Team, COAF Field Team on YouTube. And this round, we're talking about the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing. This is our weekly podcast from Real Cast Fishing. And what we're talking about this round is tips 51 through 55. And it's focusing on fly presentation versus fly casting. And so what I'll do is I'll just run through the tips, read them right from the book, and we'll just discuss them and see where it takes us. All right, so let's begin with tip 51, the swing. You're fishing nymphs in a run, and just as you get ready to lift up and make another cast, bang, you get a hit. It happens all the time. What you just did is hook a fish on the swing. As the line straightens out, down current, the flies inevitably lift toward the surface, which looks exactly like insects emerging. Trout love eating those bugs. Many people have lost touch with the art of wet fly fishing and swinging bugs subsurface. In my family, we had a rule that the little kids had to fish the river with wet flies, so they'd work the water going downstream. When you got big enough, you were allowed to turn back into the current and start working dry flies upstream. I always thought Grandpa made that rule to keep the kids dry. I'm starting to see an ulterior motive. We caught a lot of fish that way. I learned the value of a swing. All right, the swing. This one comes in particular. In my case, I remember fishing the Guadalupe down south over there by New Braunfels, Green, Texas, the year-round trout fishery that's available to us Texans. And I was fishing lazy L&L over there by the Devil's Curve, Devil's something. It's a bend. And it was rainy, really wet, cold, chilly. And I'd been swinging the Guadalupana. It's a popular fishing fly that's used over there on the Guadalupe, made by Lefty Chavez, or originated by Lefty Chavez. And I took a downsized version of it, and I kept casting and swinging my fly, but it didn't seem to be working. And then I got to one section that was right by these steps, and sure enough, I'd let that fly swing, and as it finished that swing, the fly would pop up. Bam! I got my trout. So that swing definitely comes into play. Do keep that in your back pocket. I tend to do that more when I'm using a switch rod and fishing some streamers. But hey, the swing. It's a good one to keep in your back pocket for the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing. All right, let's go to tip 52, doing the Continental. Extreme short-line nymphing has taken the fly fishing world by storm, and for this we can thank international angling competitions. Generally known as the European method, it evolved in Poland or the Czech Republic, depending upon which brand of the Slavic kingdom you happen to be talking to. The technique takes the rationale for shorter casts a giant leap farther to virtually no cast at all. The whole idea is to get as close as possible to trout, holding in deep currents, which gives you a chance to maintain direct contact with the fly. This means only 6 feet of leader, starting with 3x or 3 times, and dropping quickly to 5x, and no fly line outside the rod tippet. The notion is to position the rod perpendicular with the tip close to the water, just above the prime holding lie. When a trout bites, you feel it. No misstrikes here. Experts further emphasize this connection by leading the fly, a ploy by which the line moves every so slightly faster than the current, enough to keep tight contact without compromising the natural drift. Tournament veterans say it also pays to give it a series of quick hook sets when the fly enters a zone likely to hold fish. Don't worry too much about spooking fish. A trout seldom flee to the other side of the river. Instead, they typically move about 10 feet, just about on target for your short line drift. Okay, so going Continental, Euro nymphing, Poland, Czech, etc. Call it all you want. Bottom line, it is a shortened line, basically no fly line like it was saying, and you are working the current on that short line. Kind of used a little variation of it when I shifted over to the Orvis Clearwater 10-foot 3-weight and put on the Euro nymph, the Rio Shorty leader / tip. What's nice about that is I can cast like normal, do my fly line fishing, traditional fly line, but if the situation allows, if I can work a particular run or drift, I put it that Rio Euro nymph shorty, and I use that up there at Turner Falls up in Davis, Oklahoma, to go work this one section where the trout were lurking in this deeper area. I basically wasn't using any fly line. I was just using that shorty nymph leader and tippet. Well, I was catching some nice numbers of trout. It was fun. Also, it's much easier to feel that stripe versus just watching your line indicator and kind of just feeling it bump along the bottom. Yeah, I could see the use of going Continental, like the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing is saying here. Let's go to tip 53. Oh, wait a minute. For those that are listening on the podcast, this is the live, unedited video podcast. I'll reproduce this one on the audio version, and that'll pop up later on today, if not tomorrow. Mainly just want to give you the opportunity to see it visually and see what I'm talking about from the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing. So those on the podcast, audio podcast, I'm just got a screenshot of the book and I'm just reading right through it. It's the Kindle version that I picked up off of Amazon that I go back to throughout the years, just back and forth. I'll just read through it. The other thing that I'm doing is it's Sunday, January 21st. It's chilly out there. It's like 30-something degrees. And I did go fishing yesterday and struck out, but there was a lot of ice on the pond. So maybe I can use that as an excuse. I just weren't biting. But that said, I am having a little Shiner Bock from the Spetzel Brewery just down south over here in Shiner, Texas. Might as well enjoy a Sunday while we're, if we're not fishing, we can at least talk fishing-related things. All right, so let's get to tip 53 of the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing. Weighty Matters, Part 1. On a typical spring day on Wyoming's North Platte River, wind ripped straight downstream hard enough to blow the horns off a goat. What had been a sensational nymph fight for Big Rainbow suddenly went dead. It took a minute to understand the problem, but the solution was almost instantaneous. This downstream wind greatly accelerated the surface speed of the water, now rushing much faster than where the fly was located 4 feet below. The solution? Move closer and shorten the line, which was now possible because the wind rippling the surface makes it difficult for fish to see the angler. Then pinch on 2 more BB-sized split shot, the quickest and best way to slow the drift. The result, the bite immediately returned. Most nymph fishermen are minimalists when it comes to using lead, choosing the least amount to reach desired depth. Trouble is, we waste much of the target zone waiting for the fly to sink. Instead, put on twice as much weight as you think you need. It may not be pleasant to cast, but it catches fish. All right, so what I did notice, I read ahead, tips 53, 54, 55. I'll talk about weighty matters, and in this case, part 1 is talking doubling or adding additional weight that you think you should have to get that fly down to the zone, the money zone where the trout are lurking. So good to keep in your back pocket. Gotta get that fly down into the zone instead of waiting for it to drift down, because by the time it gets through that drift and it's fast, let's say, you could find yourself with that fly out of the zone and trout will just will let it pass by. So let's see what weighty part or matters part 2 has to say. This is tip 54 out of the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing. When conditions demand a presentation very close to bottom, don't be afraid to shorten the distance between the weight and the fly. Within reason, trout don't seem to care much about this spacing and won't be spooked by the weight. The payoff comes in keeping your fly from floating up out of the zone where fish are holding. Trout are accustomed to a constant barrage of objects in drift. If they got put off by something as small as a split shot, they'd starve to death. All right. Okay, so, keep that in your back pocket. Don't be afraid to shorten the distance between the weight and the fly. I tend to put the split shot, I call it the hang loose symbol, the Hawaii hang loose symbol. Ooh. So for those on the audio podcast, I'm making the Hawaii hang loose signal, and it's given me about maybe 10 inches, about 10-inch difference, and that's pretty much where I'll set a lead lag fly in a tandem rig. Probably still do the same thing if I'm adding some additional weight, some little BB size shot to my my rig to get the fly down to where I believe it needs to be. But it's saying don't be afraid to get even closer. So do keep that in your back pocket. So the further you go back and give more weight between or line between the weight and the fly, call it the issue that you have when you're using a sink tip. Traditionally, you could use a 9-foot leader and tippet when you're traditionally fly line fishing with a floating line. But when you shift to a submerge or sinking tip, you definitely want to shorten the leader in tippet. So I think that's the same thing they're talking about here when it talks about getting that baby closer to the fly. Don't be afraid. You don't have to have it away too far away from it so that the trout will get spooked. It looks like I think they don't mind. Okay, so let's go to tip 55, Weighty Matters Part 3. So 53 was Weighty Matters Part 1. 54 is Weighty Matters Part 2, and Weighty Matters Part 3 is tip 55. So it kind of tells me that the little red book is telling yours truly, hey, weighty matters make a difference, especially when you're doing a fly presentation, getting to that fly to the money zone where those trout are lurking. All right, so let's see what Weighty Matters Part 3 has to say. When current, wind, or any combination thereof conspire to keep you from an acceptable nymphing drift, there's one sure cure: add more weight. Think anvil. As one might imagine, heavy objects are resistant to being moved by water. The more weight you attach to your line, the slower it'll move with the flow. Okay, well, I'm not sure what to say about that one. I think it just reiterates again what the other two were saying about the weight. Add more weight, double what you think. 2, don't mind getting it closer to the fly. And in this case, more weight, it's going to slow it down. All right, good to know. Okay, on the screen, you can see tip 56 is showing the difference between a good fisherman and a great fisherman, or a great one, is a BB. I'm going to hold that one for our next episode here in the next week. So for now, let's just kind of shift over to some just open forum standpoint. Typically at this point, I would open up to any questions and answers, any questions that came in over the course of the last time we met. And right now it's been slow go. The only real call out I had this past week or so was talking about the producer fishing fly. This one was just someone was pointing out that it's very much like a woolly bugger, other than doesn't have hackle, and it's one that a lot of folks seem to be doing well on, especially on the Blue River, that producer fishing fly. It's a quick tie, easy tie, minimal material. I kind of tend to use it more often than not. In fact, I did go out yesterday and try doing some fly fishing in some of that cold weather. There was still ice in places on the pond and that I was fishing in. Well, I've yet to catch a fish for 2024 yet. Got sidetracked with a day job, but at the same time, it's been pretty tough with this cold weather. And yeah, it's been an interesting 2024 already. But that said, hey, Schonnerbach always makes it better. All right. Okay, so with that, didn't have any more question-answer stuff, so I'll just talk now to our third item on the agenda in this format. This is where I talk recent events. Okay, so recent events, really the only call out over the course of the past week has been there are some upcoming trout stockings that'll be coming up here in the next week, so you want to keep your back pocket ready. Go check out the Texas Trout Stocking schedule. You'll see that there'll be, I believe there's one in Rockwall, Texas, just right down the road from us here in Allen. Additionally, there's a couple of places. If you're in the Fort Worth area, you might make that run over to Possum Kingdom, see what that trout stocking's been like. And then, of course, you can always go to Denison Dam as well as Lake Texoma and give the striper bite a try. Seeing some good reports of folks doing well, at least getting a bite on those stripers up there, just up the road from us here. So I've been kind of itching to go up there, especially since there's two forms of fishing that I want to try this year, or at least I've tried it already. Just want to go back to it again. One is back to the switch rod, two-handed rod casting, and see if I can get some of those Clouser minnows worked over there in the tail race and get some of those bruiser striped bass. Additionally, put on the center pin reel. That's that one reel that it has no drag, and you pretty much cast that afloat using a different style. I think they call it the Wallace cast. and you cast out monofilament line and you let it just do a drag-free drift under a float, be it a fly or a bait, whatever you're using. And well, it's pretty fun. I've caught some nice sized catfish using that method already, and I'm kind of itching to do it again. Additionally, there's a couple of ponds I want to try hitting here as soon as it warms up a little bit. One with the bait finesse system style casting or gear again. So I want to cast with basically bass fishing bait casting gear, but able to cast those ultralight lures and see what the bite's like there. And additionally, I've got that hand line that I want to do some bread for bait fishing for some of those catfish that I know are lurking in the local ponds. And I'm hoping to get some underwater shots there to give you an idea of, well, you'll be surprised what has been lurking in some of these ponds. Over the course of the years, a lot of our local ponds get stocked with trout, be it from the state as well as some of those amateur game biologists that don't know that you're not supposed to do it, but they do it anyways. Stock local ponds and whatnot with big fish. And so you may find yourself at one of these little ponds, and next thing you know, you got yourself a nice bruiser catfish or bruiser bass that has taken your bait, your lure, your fly, etc. So hey, keep that in your back pocket. The other thing that I think I want to try here in 2024, there's a couple of places back in the city of Dallas proper, that there are some, well, there's some nice fishy locations there that I'll do some urban fishing. So I may have to sneak over there a little bit over the course of the next few and see if I can get something to bite down there. So that's pretty much all I had this round for the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing, episode 5 from the Real Kiss Fishing podcast. This round we went through tips 51 through 55. Next round we'll go through tips 56 through 60. We do them in increments of 5. And we'll just keep going till we're done with the book. And then, well, we'll have to recall the series and see if we need to go find us another book to go through and review. All right. So, that said, all for now. Appreciate y'all joining. And this is the live unedited version. So you'll see that one on the video podcast. Additionally, I'm going to repost this one in the audio version, the Real Cast Fishing podcast. And, well, hopefully you can get some good takeaways from these episodes so that maybe you guys can catch a fish or two. And like our motto says from the Cedar Valley Fishing Field Team, learn to fish by our trials and errors. All right, all for now. Next time, we'll catch you later, and good luck and good fishing.